as these conditions will allow, we're able to see family and get a bit of rest over the holidays. And I hope you all come back recharged and energized and ready to kick off the new year with some, great music promotion and getting your stuff out there. And hopefully we can help you on your way with that and see you making more money, more sustainably and more consistently over time. So today we're going to be covering some of the fundamentals of using YouTube, some of the big changes that have happened in YouTube recently, promoting your work on Facebook, and of course, what you need to know about artist websites. And I hope that everyone does actually have a artist website, because that's one of the critical things to getting your stuff out there. So my name is Adrian Ellis. I'm going to be the host and moderator for today. I'm a professional music creator and composer. I've been working in the business for about 15 years. I'm also the first vice president of the Screen Composers Guild of Canada, which represents Canadian English-speaking screen composers, so film and TV composers in Canada. And until recently, I was also on the board of the MCNA, the Music Creators Association of North America, which is an advocacy group for music creators in North America. It'll be available eventually for you as well, and what we're working towards at this point. So then we're going to do an overview of the YouTube with Colin. I'm going to talk about Facebook best practices and how you can promote. We're going to do the artist websites with Ron. And then we've got two very special guests with us, Corey Lene Carruthers and Robert Michaels. There are some fantastic musicians who have had successes and challenges and sort of seen them all through in marketing their own music on the digital sphere. So they're going to be telling some of their stories and sharing with us their ups and downs in that whole arena. And then we'll have a Q&A. So until the Q&A, let's keep all questions until the Q&A. If you do want to ask something while we're chatting or while someone's presenting something, do put it in the chat section, and one of us will get to it in the chat. But otherwise, we will have a live Q&A at the end. And please do keep yourself on mute, just so we don't hear a lot of noise and background stuff while we're going through everything. And that's it. So with that said, I am going to hand it over to our panel. So we'll start with quick introductions from Colin, Catherine, and Ron.
Well, hi there. Okay, Ron, you go first. Go. He said my name, that's why. Go ahead.
Okay. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Colin Mendez Morris. I'm a composer and conductor, originally a trombonist from Toronto, with origins in Trinidad and Tobago. So I recently have been studying actually video and film, and I'm just completing a master's degree at De Montfort University in the UK in film, which of course I'm studying music and specifically opera, especially because that's where I just finished writing my first opera and it will be premiered later this year. So I'm very much up on sort of this visual medium or slant towards music creation that appears to be happening, recently and in the last 10 years.
Hi, so I'm Ron Korb, flutist, composer, and Canadian musician, obviously. And the three of us put together this whole program of the CDMC, the Canadian Digital Music Collective. And it's what we've been working on for the past few months to find methods to help discoverability for musicians.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Catherine Chambers, and I'm an organizational development consultant. I'm also doing my PhD in social justice education at U of T. My research is on micro businesses in all sectors and industries and the enabling technologies. I work on the newsletter on a monthly basis and will be collaborating with everyone on the streaming guide. So it's a pleasure to be with everyone this afternoon.
Great, thanks. Ron and Colin, do you want to go over a little bit of what the project has entailed so far, what we went over the last seminars and what we're working towards, just quickly?
Well, okay, we actually went through quite a bit of material talking about promotion and streaming, etc. in the first two. We talked about aggregation, all the different aggregators that are out there, the pros and cons of each one. And we talked about some promotion things. We talked about the basics of how to get your stuff online and certain things that are important and certain things that you need to do. And we're working on all kinds of things. I mean, we're working on all the different platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Tidal, etc. One thing I do want to mention before I forget is that during the Christmas holidays, I asked people to send in tracks because I want to start creating our own CDMC playlists. And I did get a number of them, but I need more. So anybody who's listening, please send me your tracks, and we're going to start to compile these playlists ourselves.
Yes, I think in the past we had covered quite a few things, but we also discovered a few rabbit holes. And really, the more we dug in terms of looking at how you can earn revenue from streaming services, etc., the more sometimes questions we found. And we found, like for instance, Ron found some money from a service that he had no idea and did not expect that he was going to get any revenue, and it was directly related to unlicensed use of his music from YouTube. And so that was I think that's still evolving. There are several companies now that are kind of just some very recent, in the last 6 months, who are now searching and have the ability to search for use of your music on these different streaming platforms. And as the platforms kind of make agreements with the various rights organizations, and the tracking becomes better and better, and then you're able to earn money more and more.
Yeah, I actually should mention that, yes, we've dealt with the whole sort of publishing aspect of streaming, and it's quite involved. And we would be remiss not to mention that the Music Modernization Act, or the MMA, that was signed into law back in 2018. Well, now they've just recently launched the Mechanical Licensing Collective, or called MLC, and that's just this month, in January 2021. And this is from the Library of Congress website, but it says basically the MMA changes the way songwriters and music publishers are paid statutory mechanical royalties when their work is streamed on interactive streaming services like Apple Music or Spotify. Beginning in 2001, a nonprofit entity designated by the Copyright Office called the Mechanical Licensing Collective will collect and distribute these royalty payments to copyright owners of musical works matched to the sound recordings in the database. And just very, very briefly, that doesn't mean that you have to, quit SOCAN or anything. You're still using your PRO, but there's this brand new nonprofit that's going to be going after this mechanical license royalties.
Great. One thing I'll mention, I put this into the chat so that people can download it if they'd like, is I went over the streaming, I presented a streaming fundamentals guide, which is presented as a PDF here, which you're free to download. And it sort of gives you a big, broad overview of everything you'll need to have in order to start effectively marketing your work online. And it's pretty agnostic. It doesn't really matter where you do it, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on YouTube, whether you're pushing out content all the time, or you're just getting people to go to your Spotify or whatever you're doing. This is sort of going to give you a really broad outline of everything you'll need to have in one fell swoop. So pretty handy guide that way. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Colin now, and Colin's going to give us an update on some of the changes that have happened in terms of YouTube and what that means for music creators. Go for it, Colin.
Okay, now I started researching this probably last summer. Actually, probably before, when Ron, myself, and Adrian first came up with the idea, and Ron came up with the idea, and Adrian and I contributed to the overall structure of how we wanted to go ahead. And so once we obtained the funding from the Canada Council, it was full steam ahead. In the meantime, YouTube has gone through some huge changes. And the main thing is that you have to understand YouTube is part of the Google empire, right? And because of that, Google decided they were going to bring their Google Play Music service into YouTube. And also, they're going to rebrand it. Well, I shouldn't say rebrand. They were going to create a new service called YouTube Music to compete with Spotify and all the other streaming services directly. So this was, I thought it was a very good plan, because I thought you wanted something specific. And I had used YouTube for years um, to put content up from both my own organizations and concerts and friends and colleagues concerts that I frequently would direct the videos or live stream. And it was really, really interesting because what you have now is you have, they're trying to bring a lot of these services into really into into a new format that competes, but also that also preserves the advantages that YouTube has with regards to the visual image. So, and that means a few things. What it means is that when you search for an artist, sometimes you will come up with, a lot of times the official audio version will be the first thing presented in a Google search. So, for example, I was reading, I think I was on CNN's website, looking at some of the carnage that happened down south. And I, as I was looking, I saw a story about, it said something like singer created song that inspired Black Lives Matter's music movement. And I'd never heard of it. It was a country song. So when I heard country and Black Lives Matters, I wanted to see how this was connected. Turned out it was a black female singer, American, um, who named Mickey Guyton. And so I sort of clicked on there. No, I think I Googled her name. And so this is kind of how the sequence of events happened. And I'll explain my point. So I Googled the name of the song was Black Like Me. Then I clicked on the links, which came up with her. I'm just going through it live right now so I can give you guys a better impression. And what came up, the first thing it came up with was an official audio YouTube video. Okay, so, and that was a video, if I'm looking at it right now, it does not, it does not have any lyrics. It doesn't have anything. All it just has is the title of the song and the track itself. So then after I realized that, the lyrics were immediately below that. Okay, then it said in the Google search, available on Spotify and then YouTube Music. So then when I clicked on the YouTube Music link, and I'm doing it live again just to get an idea of what was there. So I clicked on that, and then I saw the artwork for the album, and then I saw exactly the track, not the tracks on the album, but I had similar songs by similar artists. That kind of so that meant like I guess conscious kind of country songs and a few others, and that's what came up in the search. Now the other thing I found with YouTube Music, when I actually now I'm logged into YouTube as with a YouTube Premium account, so that also affects what you see, because I also found that what I was getting in some cases when I clicked on, say, the Explore tab, I would get a lot of related stuff that I had been looking at for a long time. So I would get like, I think probably the last 6 months worth of music that I actually looked at or listened to on YouTube popped up. So they had various different ways of looking at things. They had new albums and singles, top songs, moods and genres, trending, and new music videos. Now I'm just going to go back slightly just to sort of temper what I did. So if I go back to that original Google search page and I look for different things about her, it goes down to a thing that says under available on Spotify, YouTube Music, and Deezer. It says artist, Mickey Guyton, album is Bridges. So you have links to all of that, when it was released, and what the genre was. And then they have 6 examples of people also search for. Okay, now then there's a video tab, and this is where it got really interesting, because if I chose the first video in the video tab, this video is actually a live version of the song that she did in a studio, not the official audio that was at the top of the page previously. So Then when I go to the right, and we've all seen YouTube, and you go to the right, you see all the different things that are going to play. This is where it got really interesting, because I saw interspersed with things that I've looked at. I saw different links to different versions of what she did. A Tiny Desk Home concert, and from NPR, National Public Radio, and I also saw several different live versions. Now, the interesting thing about these live versions, they weren't always of the actual song. There were other things on the album, and there were other things that happened to be popular or went a bit viral on YouTube as well. And in one of these videos, she kind of says her whole kind of story behind her as an artist, and she's in a live club situation. And it's not what I would call absolutely fantastic video production. It's really one camera in a club. You can hear the audience, you can hear everything, but the ambiance of it is really good. And her telling an audience her life story is really, really effective. So in looking at this, I realized that I had essentially kind of tried to reverse engineer how you would go about presenting yourself on YouTube and YouTube Music. And now we all know the basics. I'll run by the basics for you. The basics were, you got on YouTube, it was, content ID verification. So you wanted 1,000 subscribers on a YouTube channel, and you wanted 4,000 hours of what they call watch time. And that was kind of the holy grail. And you also wanted to set up your profile as an artist channel. And you wanted to be aware of the YouTube Partner Program, and you wanted to have perhaps a catalog of remix things and other things that you would put out. And one of the things they wanted you to do was have consistent releases. So you had to consistently release, say, once a month, and you wanted to try to get to the point where you got to these 1,000 subscribers on your channel. And there were various things that they still have to set up your channel, which, in terms of artwork, lyrics, all that. But this was also basically tied to Google's AdSense engine. So when you think of YouTube, you can't separate it from Google, because, and I'll get to a little bit more of that in a second, because Google is really trying to, with YouTube Music, trying to integrate Google's overall, I guess, corporate thing with music. And what they're doing now is they're trying to put together, especially the casting features, where they want people to buy their devices or other devices and then use YouTube Music to cast the music to those devices. When I say cast, I mean it's like a speaker. Like any of these speakers, Bluetooth speakers or Google branded speakers, they want you to be able to use those while you're listening to the service. So you have to think of, okay, I'm going to set this YouTube channel up, I'm going to do all this, but how do I look on YouTube Music? Because that's where the real music fans are going to look for you. And you have to think of in terms of albums and in terms of video, what content is up there. One of the things I notice is that it's very Android centric and portable device centric, meaning phones or tablets. The interface for YouTube Music on the desktop does not have sometimes as much functionality as the one on your phone. So it's definitely, they're looking at cell phones and casting your cell phone to some kind of speaker in your residence or something along those lines, or device. And it's funny, my mother, who is a retired opera singer, stumbled onto this because she was looking at a video on hairstyles. And she was playing around with her phone, and we have a smart TV. And all of a sudden I hear this very high note scream. And I'm like, Mom, what's wrong? And she's like, oh, I did something. And then all of a sudden the video was on the television, and she had accidentally hit the casting link. So it would link to a smart TV device that was on our network. And I kind of backtracked and showed her what she had done. So this is what YouTube Music is doing as well for speakers. So in looking at that, I started to look at some of the features of YouTube Music, and just so you know, I will post links on our Facebook group to all of this stuff, including what I'm going to come up with, which is a loudness target for streaming platforms chart. Now, I'm going to segue into that because what I realized was that there were some differences in the sound when you listen to different artists on YouTube Music. And funny enough, so I go into YouTube Music kind of just as a guest. I haven't subscribed. I went in and I'd say the last 6 months worth of music showed up, on the right hand side. So everything I'd listened to based on Google searching and looking at my history through Chrome turned up, which was fine. And so I noticed, I said, okay, let me play some of these. So I saw one. I was looking at actually listening to a Led Zeppelin song, and I clicked on that. And funny enough, the mix did not sound very good. And this was something that had been posted to YouTube as an official, Led Zeppelin release some 5 or 6 years before. And I realized it was on my laptop. So I said, let me change it over to my monitor speakers in my studio space. So I switched it over to that, and it still didn't sound great. And what I realized was that the standards and the way that the algorithms compress the music, especially, and limit the music, have changed over the last 5 years. So even if you were a big name band like Led Zeppelin, you have to consider mixing and mastering your music for the streaming services. So that opened up a little rabbit hole, and I ran down that for some hours, and I came up with a mastering engineer who had a loudness target chart for streaming platforms, which was up to date as up to last month. So he lists all of the platforms and explains how loud your track should be and what you should do to get the best sounding track, without having to deal with a lot of compression or limiting that will dull the sound. So this I'll also post to the Facebook group afterwards. And so in looking at that, it was really, really eye-opening. So what it boils down to is there are several manufacturers, including Isotope and others, that have little plugins that you can run your mix through that will optimize it for Apple, for Spotify, for Apple Music. And in fact, he even has Apple Podcasts listed as a separate setting. So you should know that with all these changes, including with YouTube and YouTube Music, you have to keep into account or take into account how it's going to sound. And it has changed in the last 3 years to 5 years. So that being done, one of the last things was that all this casting that I spoke about, in that people are now casting it to different different devices within their household.
Yeah.
A lot of these things are not like stereo speakers set up in optimal positions. They're one single device that kind of pumps out sound. So I think they're going to come up with, in the future, ways to mix and master for those devices as well, because it is a consideration, because you want your music to sound good. And if it sounds flat, you don't really, it's just not as great an experience. So let me get back to the Mickey Guyton example. So I looked at a few of her things, and this morning I just looked back and redid my search, kind of like I did just now on what was posted, and something else popped up. There was a young figure skater who was very inspired by the track, and she had posted 2 videos of her with new choreography skating to the track, which was something brand new that just popped up, on my desktop when I did the search. So, you never know. And I also found a cover version from the US, one of the US Army bands, which was really well done, where they had decided to do a cover version of the song with a different instrumentation than the original, but it was nonetheless really, really effective. And Mickey Guyton actually responded in the comments to the fact that they had covered her song, and that created another dialogue, of course, and more people were involved, and more people were exposed to the song and liked it who had not heard of it before. So I guess some of the takeaways I would say is that right now it's not, YouTube is still not finalized, I would say. I will post a video about YouTube Music, and they have a huge amount of features. Like, I couldn't possibly cover it in 10 or 15 minutes. But I think as an artist, what you have to do is you have to choose maybe an artist or two that is close to you or that you would like to emulate in terms of your presence on YouTube Music. And then you have to be able to reverse engineer based on what you see that they've done that has worked. So that means a combination of different videos. It could be lyric videos. There's even another service which I'll list that YouTube is using that generates computer generated images to sort of respond to the music. So you can have lyric videos, like videos that just show the name of the song, like that was the first link in the Google search for Mickey Guyton. And you can have all kinds of different live versions. Now, because I'm studying video and film very much right now, we're getting to the point where an artist, you can actually perform live something and not be just dependent on the recorded official version. Like, you should be able to get your performance to the point where you can do a live version in a club, for instance, that's good enough to post on YouTube. And I mean post in a professional context, meaning that with a camera that's in a good position, not a wavy phone, but something that an audience member, someone can relate to and draws the audience in. So I think we've reached that point. So you can have 5 or 6 or 7 versions of your song from different places. And on YouTube, that really speaks to the viewer. They really, really, like I found with Mickey Guyton, it really spoke to me. And when I saw this girl skating to it, I thought it was so fantastic because she had been inspired by the song and she created this choreography and did this whole skating routine according to it. And then, you saw the US Army version and this and it just kind of snowballs. And that's what you want as an artist. You want to have that viral thing happening. And I don't think there are any real hard and fast rules, but you have to be conscious of how people are discovering your music on YouTube. And I'm sure as they fold in and add more features and push it more, I think it's going to be an even better service than YouTube had been in the past or with Google Play. I think it's going to be one of the strongest services for musicians because the video is so compelling when you see and witness stories and even read the comments. It's a very compelling way to do things. So I'll just go quickly through my main points or my main takeaway from this research. And again, I will post everything to the Facebook page. But my main takeaways are new YouTube Music is very Android centric and for portable devices. Casting is the big feature. They want people to cast it to devices within their home or wherever. They have various features that are unique, which are the ability to switch between the audio version of the song and the video within the app itself. Okay, and anyone who subscribes to you on YouTube Music, they also are subscribing to you on YouTube on your YouTube channel. Now, right now, it is a bit confusing, and I'll post a complete video that explains the YouTube Music features. But I think eventually, it's almost like they're giving YouTube Music a nice corner of YouTube that specifically targets music listeners and people who are interested in music. So that is a plus, a distinct plus. So you get all of the features kind of a Spotify or any other service, but you also get the visual. And their emphasis, the last one is their emphasis is on also having live versions or alternate versions of you performing your own stuff or your own material. So that enhances it because people can listen to, I've always been a fan of listening to live versions of songs. And I would even compile audio versions or audio recording to play in the car, like MP3s of live versions of things, because I found them more compelling sometimes than the original studio version. And I'm finding now with YouTube Music, they're emphasizing those live versions as well. And they do mention indie artists in particular in their describing things. So they're going after the independent people because when you think of YouTube, in some ways it's a free for all, but in other ways, when you have the followers, almost anyone can get their followers together and build their channel, and I think YouTube Music is a sharper sword for you to cut through from all the other stuff that's up there. Okay, so I think I hopefully I'm about good on time right now. But as I said, I will post all of these points to and some very good links to the Facebook page for guys to follow up.
Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about is Facebook ads and promotion for music creators. So this is going to be an overview. This is a massive, huge subject in terms of the complexity of the actual technology and the business tools that are available through Facebook. That we're really just going to not even, I don't even think I can say we're scratching the surface. This is almost like a little taster menu, and hopefully, you'll be getting excited about, the potential of this. Um, so Facebook ads for musicians. As I'm saying, it's a big subject once you get into the back end of it and sort of start looking at what is available to you. And by the way, I'm not talking about those things that you see sometimes in your feed where you've made a post and it says boost post. That's sort of a very low value, entry level way. And really, Facebook is almost just trying to make a few bucks from you. You're not really getting under the hood and being able to access all the incredible data and all the things that you could utilize to really push your music to a next level. So, getting into it and mastering the actual business side of it, it takes time and effort. You do have to put some time into researching and learning how the platform works and what it's supposed to do. But the potential rewards are pretty significant. I mean, I've heard some people call Facebook ads the most powerful ad platform of all time. And I tend to agree based on what I've learned so far and the way that it works. The way that you're able to target things, it really does seem like it is a real powerhouse and a real machine for getting the right thing in front of the people that want to see it. That's sort of the significant difference between the old way of advertising, which is just a shotgun approach to everyone, and Facebook advertising, which is very selective. So the goal today, obviously, I just want to introduce you to general concepts about the actual platform and definitely some of the principles of marketing your music and gaining fans, help you avoid some of the common mistakes that a lot of musicians make. And I think that, if I was to sort of sum it up, I'd say most people are doing it wrong. And then get you thinking a bit differently and feeling excited about the potential of this powerful tool. So what is Facebook ads? It's a powerful data-driven business tool. And the data part of it is really the key to the whole thing. It can be used to reach a huge amount of potential fans of your music with a high degree of exact targeting. And it can also push ads over to Instagram from the same platform. So when you're in Facebook ads, when you're in the business manager, you can take the same ads that you're creating within that and push it over to Instagram as well, if that's a platform that you're using. One thing that Facebook does is it uses AI, so artificial intelligence, in addition to complex algorithms to sort an immense amount of data and really put it into a completely different perspective for you that allows you to analyze it, and more importantly, allows you to move away from your own personal biases about who you think your audience might be, who you think, will be interested in your music. Sometimes what you find is surprising, and you can actually come to a much better strategy once you let that AI and the algorithm help you with that. It can be used as a significant part of a strategy to drive what we call in business qualified leads to a number of actions or destinations. So qualified leads just means someone who's more likely to be a genuine long-term engaged fan of your music. So the core concepts, what do we need to know as we're getting moving towards this? And these are really, it's a little platform agnostic. It doesn't necessarily mean Facebook only. This can be applied to almost anything. We need to understand why and how people become fans, the psychology behind what makes people go after the music they like and why they engage versus when they don't. We need to know what our ideal fan looks like. So you can use that data to refine and start targeting more and more precisely. And we need a way to be able to capture those potential fans and begin and continue a relationship with them. This is one of the most key points. A lot of people spend a lot of time and money sending people to Spotify directly from a Facebook ad, or just getting them to do something that really ends up being nothing more than what they call a vanity metric, lots of likes, lots of spins, etc. But these aren't truly valuable fans that really like your music. There's someone that's sort of seen an ad, gone and done this thing and just gone, you know what, this doesn't really, I'm not really into this. And that is unfortunately a waste of everyone's time and definitely a waste of your time and money. So why and how of fans? So some of the psychological principles behind this you really have to understand, but once you do, make the whole thing really exciting. So introduction is the first stage, sort of when you're in that ecosystem, and this goes for any ecosystem. This is if you're playing live in bars, doing a tour, if you're on the street corner busking, this is the same thing. The psychological principle of homophily. We like what is like us. So if you're into metal, you probably have long hair, you wear metal t-shirts, you wear, certain type of shoes, you have a certain type of lifestyle, and you're going to more connect with people that are like that. When you're in a band, or if you're an artist, singer, songwriter, the way you present yourself, the way your photographs look, everything that surrounds the way that you come across to other people lends to that feeling of homophily. If they see something and they feel this is like me, they're more likely to like it. The concept of triadic closure. So if connections A to B exist and B to C exist, there's a tendency for the new connection A to C to be formed. Sounds really complex, but it really just means that if you go to a concert and you have a relationship with the band on stage, and they bring out a supporting band because they like that band too, and they think you'll like that band, there's a greater likelihood of you liking that supporting act because you already have a connection with that band. And because of homophily, you guys like the same things. This is a key to sort of those relationships being formed. These are all things that we can use while we're advertising. We want to make sure that we're talking to people and letting them know how we are similar. And then we want to have that feeling that there's a connection between this new thing, which is probably your music and the fans that you might be marketing to, and that there's a connection there, a third connection, like either a friend or feeling like there's an introduction. The idea of organic discovery is so important. Ownership is key. Unlike marketing a product, no one needs music to solve a problem in their life, right? I mean, even if music does solve a problem, like make you feel at peace or get you energized, you probably already have your playlist. You have things you're going to. Do you need more music like you need a product in your life, or like you need water or any other utility? No. So what is it about music discovery that makes it work? And it's about this idea of ownership, right? The fan or the potential new fan has found something. So it has value to them, and it's now their narrative. It's about, I discovered this new artist. I'm excited to learn more, and I want to share it with other people if they get to that stage of that whole relationship. So that's really, really key. When you're doing ads, the way you do your ads has to make it feel like someone's discovered something. It has to lend excitement. It has to make someone feel like this was my journey and I discovered this new thing that I'm excited to go further and learn more about and share with my friends. Gaining a fan really mirrors building a relationship. When so many people go into the world of advertising and they go from the meeting someone in the street to asking them to marry them. And that, of course, is not how you build relationships. You go, hey, how are you? My name is so-and-so. You seem like a cool, what are you doing on the street today? Or, maybe you're meeting in a coffee shop. And then the next stage is, can we have a conversation? And then after that, after you've established some conversation and you've talked about things that you both like, homophily, or maybe someone that you have in common, triadic closure. Then after that relationship has been established and you've established some trust, then you go, hey, do you mind if I get your email address? Or do you mind if I get your number? I'd love to follow up and maybe like meet for coffee again, and so on and so on and so on. You're going to do the exact same thing in your music marketing career. There is no difference in how you build fans or in how you meet people or build new relationships with people. You can't skip steps. It's not an event, it's a process. You want deeper relationships that have value for all the sides. So when you ask someone for their information and you put them into your mailing list and you reach out to them again and say, hey, look at this, video that we did while we're in the studio, or check out this new live tracker. Hey, we're live streaming, or hey, our new album's coming out. Here's some tracks for free. You want them to go, man, I'm so glad I heard from this band. I really feel a relationship with them because that was built organically. These things are so key before you even get under the hood of Facebook marketing or put out an ad or try to run a campaign. If you don't understand how you're going to make use of these principles, you're pretty much dead in the water. So then you have to know your audience. And this is kind of a guessing game in the beginning. And once you start building out campaigns within Facebook, and again, I can't really start to talk about how you do that because we could talk for a week, 8 hours a day, and it would still just be scratching the surface. But you're going to kind of invent your ideal fan. Who are they? How old are they? Is there a gender that's related to your typical fan? Do they live in a certain place? What are their likes, dislikes in terms of music and everything else? What is their lifestyle? Again, this has to do with that idea of homophily. If you're a metal band, it's going to be certain things. If you're a hip hop artist, it's going to be certain things. It's always going to be a specific thing. So you're building this out. Now, what happens with Facebook that makes it so cool is that you're basically using that gas, and then you're going to feed it in and create all these audiences, like these sort of subsets of people. And you're going to run a bunch of tests. So you're going to create your video, you're going to create your ad or whatever it is, and send it out. And Facebook's going to find all these people that have all the points that you said you wanted. You want this age, this gender, this geographic location, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They like John Deere tractors and popsicles in the summer, and whatever it is. And it's going to find you all these people. But then it's also going to say, you know what, after we ran this ad, it seems to be that these types of people responded really well to it and these types of people didn't. And by the way, did you know that all the people that responded really well also love movies that have dolphins in them? And I'm just making stuff up here, but it's like, it can be that specific. And you go, man, I never knew, I'm not into dolphins, but I guess my fans really like dolphins, or my potential fans really like dolphins. And then so you create a new subset of that group, and you make, you're always niching down and always creating smaller and smaller subsets as you go on and refine that targeting. And eventually you get to the point where when you put out a video, Facebook is helping you indicate and show this stuff to the people that are most likely to be absolutely overjoyed that they see what you're putting out there. They're going to be into your music. They're going to be into your, your story as a band. They're going to be into your image and your vibe and everything else, as opposed to this sort of like shotgun approach that's been, the way of marketing for the last, 50 plus years. And it certainly has been the case in, traditional music marketing, where it's just a shotgun approach. We'll see what comes out in the wash. You're spending enormous amounts of money. As you refine the data, as you get smaller and smaller subsets, you're also spending less and less money, because Facebook wants everyone to be happy, essentially, because that makes Facebook happy. They want to show ads to people who want to see those ads, and they want to keep everyone on that platform because that makes them money. So it's weird, but the better ads you run, the less they'll cost you, and the better it is for all parties. And of course, this using the algorithm and the AI, as I said before, it removes your bias. It tells you information about who likes your music and why that you didn't know before. So capturing fans is another really important part that people seem to miss. And this again goes to the point where people start to worry too much about vanity metrics. How many spins did I get? How many likes did I get? What you really want is to get high quality potential fans. Again, this as I was talking about in the previous slide, for all those reasons, the people that are most likely to really want to engage. And then you want to figure out a way to capture them so that you can continue the conversation, educate them, and build a relationship to higher and higher levels of engagement and trust. That can be with, constant content. Maybe you're producing YouTube videos on the regular where you talk about, here's a day in the life of our band, or here's us in the studio, or here's me working on a new song, or here's me talking about the reasons why I wrote these lyrics the way I did and what the song means to me. Here's a random, day of me and taking my dog for a walk and just talking about philosophy or whatever you think your fans will like. You're trying to show up again and again and, educate the people that are new to you. What are you about? What do you stand for? What's the reason you're doing what you do, and why does it matter to them? So some low value activities that a lot of people seem to do on Facebook and Facebook marketing is sending unqualified viewers to Spotify, right? You want your Spotify spins, and I get it. You want people listening to your music, but the problem is that if you haven't gone through this prior work to really identify who the most likely person is to really be into your music, you're going to do it at a high cost because you're taking people away from Facebook, and they don't want you to do that. So they're going to make you pay more. And once they get to Spotify, there's no way to track or capture those people. You don't have their addresses. You don't know who they are. There's no way to talk to them ever again. So you've lost out on a huge opportunity to slowly build that relationship with a fan. And also, if you're sending people that may not be your ideal fans, you're giving Spotify and Facebook bad data, and therefore you're going to get bad results. So I posted something on the Facebook group recently where Spotify's taken 750,000 songs down, and it is primarily because of that. It's songs that were where people bought onto playlists. They bought spins. They were basically just trying to throw money at a problem instead of building genuine fans. And therefore, yes, they got the spins and they got that vanity metric, but the people that were sent to them were not highly qualified or ideal fans. And therefore they listened to maybe like a few seconds and went, I don't like this music. This doesn't resonate with me. I have no relationship to this artist, basically. So they left, and then they never came back, and there's no way to recapture it. And that data set now is what Spotify thinks that you want to continue doing. And they're going, well, it's obviously people don't like your music. And that is probably the worst thing that could happen. So as a lot of people say, that are sort of into this kind of Facebook marketing, be careful with this. You don't want to go willy-nilly into these kind of ads and pushing people to different platforms and doing these things without genuinely building a relationship with your fans over time that is going to be high value. High value is asking viewers who liked your ad to like your page. Then you can keep up with them. You can keep speaking to them in a low-cost way. Hey, you've got them on your page now, or you've got them into your newsletter. Now it doesn't cost you anything to keep talking to them. If you don't capture them, you have to pay for ads again to talk to them again. So what you want to do is make it low cost. You want to talk to them directly. You want to get them into that conversation as quickly as you can make that happen. And then, of course, eventually over time, as you build up that relationship, you can make offers to them. You can get them to sign up to your email list. You can get them to buy your product, your merch, whatever else. And of course, attend your live streams and your shows once that's a thing again. Getting attention. So video ads is one of the best ways to do this. Because video ads show up in the feed, it can appear like an organic suggestion based on the preferences of the viewer. They'll see this come up, and if you do it right, it will seem like sort of a viral video or something that kind of captures their attention and go, oh, what's this? I'm curious. Now I want to click on it. And if all those things work really well, then you've got someone's attention. The video should appear authentic, quote unquote viral. So that doesn't mean it's a genuinely viral video, but can have that feel. Right? You want to put the viewer inside the experience and it be relatable. So not slick, finished music videos that are directed and have a narrative kind of thing that are all with cinematic B-roll and just look flashy and amazing. Those are great for your YouTube. Those are great to sort of be another part of the content that you push out over time as you build that relationship with the audience. But as a form of marketing, you want it to feel like someone walked into a party and saw this amazing band playing in the corner, and they're doing something just incredible and engaging and compelling, and you went, wow, who are these people? I love this. So some examples of this kind of thing are live performance videos. So like this would be out on the street, right? I mean, again, we have to be careful with COVID. You don't want to go running around and getting sick or anything, but anything that's a live performance that really shows off what you do. If you have anyone in the band that's like a shredder on the guitar, can sing amazing, or just someone that has that wow factor, that's a really great thing to put. And you put it in the first 5 to 10 seconds, you just smash them with that. Anything that surprises, delights, a pattern interrupt, something that makes you go, wait, what? Like you see those still images sometimes on ads on Facebook, and you just have to click on it because you're just like, what is this about? It's usually two things that don't go together, like a dolphin and someone feeding it a hamburger, and you got to go, what is this about? Those are the kind of things that capture attention.
Yeah.
All right, that is it for me. I hope that was helpful. I know it's like drinking from a fire hose, but again, the main thing is to get you thinking about Facebook ads, get you thinking about what the potential is, because the potential is huge. And I think it's a really bright time for artists because you can control this yourself. You can be um, in control of your branding and everything else surrounding your music that isn't the music making, but you can make it very creative. And if you can follow these principles, then really the world is your oyster and you can start really making a lot out of this. So thanks for your attention. And I now pass it over to Ron, who's going to talk about artist websites, which of course are a very important part of that whole strategy.
Thank you. Yeah, Ron and Catherine, actually. I just actually want to make one little point. I noticed there's quite a few new people to the webinar this week, and we keep reiterating this, but 90% or 80% of all music revenue now for recorded music comes from streaming. And actually the music business is actually increasing now. The revenue made from recordings is actually increasing. It's hit its lowest point and it's coming, and it's all because of streaming. But can you put up the first slide, the one on my website first? This is my website here, okay? I don't know if you can actually see it, but the problem with it is that it's non-responsive. It was designed for a desktop computer to be viewed on a desktop computer. And now that the technology has gone the way it is, where everybody is using cell phones, 70% of of all music that's listened to is listened to from cell phones. So I didn't realize it, but because I haven't changed the architecture of my website for over a decade, that my particular website is just not responsive at all. I mean, you can see it physically, but everything is just there it is. Everything is just so small. And even if you blow it up, it's still not really functioning. So I use a web builder called Bandzoogle, which is a Canadian web builder. It's specific to music, and it's a very good thing. And it's not really their fault because I just haven't changed the template. So I talked to them about it, and they said, well, you obviously have to migrate your site, and any template that you use now will work for the mobile devices. And I don't know much about this, so that's why I'm having Catherine share this little show and tell with me. And the first thing, here you can see, this is one of the other competing web builders. This is Wix. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about it, Catherine?
This is definitely from Wix. And the point of having this in the presentation is just to convey that it's possible to build your own site. So most people know what Wix is. It's a vernacular term, it's a household term, but in case you have never approached the idea of building your own site, what people are doing is they're looking at DIY tools that are available. Wix is one of them. There are others. Squarespace is another. Weebly is another. But for the purpose of today, we're just going to show you a few things that you can do with Wix. And by the way, is there anyone on the call? And you could just type in the chat, yes. That is currently considering changing your website, rebuilding your site, launching a new site. If that's the case, you could just put yes in the chat. Little data collection as we move along. So with Wix, you can build a site specific to music. And thank you so much, Jeff. And you can upload your files and sell your music. We'll go to the next slide. Thanks very much, Adrian. So once you build a Wix site, there are so many options, and it's really an iterative process. You build your site, it's very, very intuitive. Basically, Wix is a graphical user interface on web development. So whereas 10 years ago, we would go to a website developer to get a website, we can now go to wix.com, choose a template, and basically click here and there, enter information. It's very intuitive, and you can watch little instructional videos. So if you have a newsletter, for instance, or if you just want to maintain that connection with visitors to your site, You can have pop-ups that say subscribe here or enter your email address. So that's what you're looking at on this particular page, is different tools that you can try. Some of them are rated high, some of them not so much, but you can watch the video, see how they work, and decide which one is appropriate for you. Many of these tools are free of charge, and we'll talk about pricing in a minute overall, but you can always upgrade these tools. We'll move on to the next one. We're just going to take another couple minutes at the most, because really you learn by doing. So we just want you to know that with Wix or with any of these platforms, you don't have to use Wix. These are tools that can be used in conjunction with other platforms. So Tidio, live chat, for instance. If you've ever visited a website and the chat pops up and you're asked if you have any questions, what they're using is an app, and Tidio could be the live chat tool that's being used. And it is a way of managing relationships. You want people to land on your site and feel like it's an opportunity for them to build a relationship. So there are other options that you can choose. There are testimonials. There is something that will pop up to tell people that somebody recently bought one of your tracks. You can choose whichever option you feel makes sense to you. You don't have to decide initially. It's an iterative process, as I mentioned. So if we move on, I just wanted to show you, and this is the members area. So this is a way where people who visit your site will be able to leave their personal information if you were to choose this kind of app. And you can basically add this for free. So once again, it could be that you're using Wix. You might be using something like Shopify or Squarespace. These tools can be used with a variety of platforms. The next one is kind of interesting. I don't know if you've ever been on a site where you see the pop-up, and I think you probably would be familiar with a pop-up that encourages you to fill out your personal information. But sometimes there are pop-ups that are calls to action that require you to respond in order for you to leave the site. So there's a site called hellobar.com, and it's quite interesting. On the right, you'll see this is an exit intent. So that is the marketing tool, or the marketing concept rather, the terminology that is used to capture someone's intent and to make them, or to encourage them to act on it. So to ensure that people leave your site by taking action instead of just closing it, you can, by going to hellobar.com, this exit intent. And one of the things that you might do is encourage people to create an account. I believe we have one or two slides, and that's about it. I just wanted to show some of the things that you might choose if you're building a site. So once again, relationship management, it's very important for people to feel as though they have a relationship with you. And you can do that by sending them a thank you message once they enter their information. So these are things, it's plug and play, that you can select while you're building your site. Or you might decide after you build your site that that you want something that you've seen on another site. So maybe you visit a site and they have something really cool. Chances are you can find the app and install it yourself, or if somebody is working with you, you can recommend that they purchase the app for you and install it on your site. So these tools will enable you to build a site that is navigable, as well as a site that is compelling. We have two more. One of them is an app for if you wanted people to leave voice comments on your site, you could do that. And there's also an app so that if people are clicking on your Facebook page while they're on your website, they stay on your site. So if you want to, once again, keep people on your site, Colin was talking about YouTube. Maybe they're listening to something on your YouTube channel. You can install something called smart social icons, and that keeps them on your site while they're watching or listening to your music. The final slide is the pricing plan. So we just wanted you to know that, yes, you can initially build the site for free, but you would then launch the site so that you could use your own domain. And there are various pricing plans, and you can see here how you monetize your art or your content rather, and the different plans that are available to you. So it starts at something very basic, and if you visit the page, you will select what makes sense for you. And basically the differences are with the video hours and the storage space. Those are the key differences that will affect the pricing. So more information will be provided ultimately in the guide that's being developed. Also, it will be in the upcoming newsletter. There'll be more information. And the best way to learn, obviously, is by digging in. But if you're not interested in digging in, you can still have a web developer develop the site for you.
Mm-hmm. And because, for instance, a friend of mine, he got his website developed, and he paid over $3,000 to $4,000. I mean, it's a lot of money. In this case, you're talking about, like you said, they're all competitive. Like Bandzoogle is $200 a year. This is a very similar price. Another thing I just want to say about Bandzoogle, what they do have is they have this Kickstarter function right inside, and everything is not non-commissioned. So any money that you make selling CDs or whatever, all the money goes back to you. And this friend of mine who has spent the $4,000, actually, he is actually paying every single time, because the payment function on there is always kicking back a commission. So there's a lot of advantages using these, template-based web builders.
Okay, and now we move over to the special guests portion of the event. I'm really excited for Robert and Corey to share their experiences. Ron, I'm going to let you moderate this one because you know these wonderful people, and you can introduce them and take us on a journey into this world of streaming.